Why did Iran target Israel? And why did Israel strike back by hitting key sites in Iran? This conflict runs deeper than you think. Stay tuned as we uncover the hidden history behind this escalating war. Welcome to Mr. AI. Today, we're diving deep into one of the longest-running, most complicated conflicts in modern geopolitics: the struggle between Iran and Israel. This is a story rooted in politics, religion, power struggles, and the fate of the Middle East. We will trace how it all began, explore key moments that shaped the conflict, and look at where we stand today. Let's unravel this complex history, one piece at a time. The story of the Iran-Israel conflict didn't begin with immediate animosity. In fact, before 1979, Iran and Israel had relatively friendly relations. During the 1950s through the 1970s, Iran was under the rule of the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a secular monarch with close ties to the West. At the time, Iran was one of the few Muslim-majority nations that maintained diplomatic and economic relations with Israel. But this fragile peace was about to break apart. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution occurred, a major turning point that would transform the entire region's political landscape.
Determined to press ahead with liberal reform. It is from the mosques that opposition to the Shah is being led by puritanical Shiite Muslims. The religious zealots want to return to the Constitution of 1906, which would ensure all legislation conforms with Islamic law.
Almost 40,000 refinery workers went on strike today, virtually cutting off Iran's petroleum exports.
University students demonstrating in Tehran, shouting death to the Shah, pledge allegiance to the Islamic movement of the Ayatollahs.
The number killed in Tehran since the beginning of the month is probably well over 100, but people in this crowd were saying and believing 7,000 had been killed. Emotions over the dead and the rumors of dead are high. Every day here now the demonstrations and arrests go on. Rumors in Tehran say people are being armed and may soon start firing back at the troops.
News there would be some kind of announcement about a new government came after yet another day of running confrontations in the center of Tehran. The army kept moving today, trying to head off the demonstrations, keep them where possible from growing in size. This dogged military resistance to the anti-Shah disturbances, part of an effort to buy the Shah as much time as possible in which to create a political solution. Demonstrations like these today in Tehran are a daily occurrence in towns throughout the country now, and one sign of the fact there is nothing less than a kind of revolution being attempted here, trying to change the form of Iran's government, and unlikely to settle easily for any solution which still keeps the Shah on his throne.
Daily, it has become more difficult to look at the scope of opposition to the Shah of Iran and still see his monarchy surviving. The Ayatollahs are committed to the ouster of the Shah and nothing less than that. They chant, Magba Shah, death to the Shah.
The new prime minister has gone some liberal political distance beyond the Shah, but not likely far enough to suit the anti-Shah religious establishment or members of the political opposition.
The Shah and his empress left shortly before midday. The empire he had hoped to build had been shattered by a year of violence.
When Ayatollah Khomeini led the revolution that ousted the Shah, Iran became an Islamic republic. This new government was based on Shia Islamic law and opposed the West, with Israel becoming a prime target of its anger. Khomeini called Israel an enemy of Islam and declared its destruction as one of the regime's key goals. The once amicable ties between Iran and Israel were severed. Iran embraced its role as a champion of the Palestinian cause, pledging support to groups opposed to Israel's existence, while Israel watched with growing concern. So, why did Iran turn so sharply against Israel? Let's look at the key reasons driving this conflict. First, ideology. Iran's Islamic Republic views Israel as a foreign, illegitimate power, propped up by Western imperialism, oppressing Muslims, particularly Palestinians. For Iran, supporting Palestinian resistance against Israel became a central tenet of its foreign policy. Second, Iran's leadership saw Israel's nuclear capabilities as a direct threat. By the 1980s, Israel was suspected of possessing nuclear weapons, which added a layer of insecurity to an already tense relationship. Third, Iran saw itself as a natural leader in the Middle East, challenging Israel's influence. This regional power struggle intensified, as both countries sought to assert dominance over their neighbors. The Iran-Israel conflict didn't stay confined to diplomatic exchanges or rhetoric. Both nations began engaging in proxy wars. Iran supported groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, militant organizations that routinely engaged in attacks on Israel. These groups became the front line of Iran's efforts to weaken Israel. In the 2006 Lebanon War, Israel fought Hezbollah in a bloody 34-day conflict. This was just one example of Iran's growing influence across the region, especially in countries bordering Israel.
Nuclear weapons program in the early 2000s.
Is Iran's nuclear program.
And a lot of information was known about that program.
That if Iran develops nuclear weapons, it could spell disaster for Israel's survival. This has led Israel to advocate for harsh sanctions on Iran and even consider military strikes to prevent Iran from developing nuclear capabilities. In 2015, a historic deal was struck between Iran and world powers. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal, required Iran to reduce its nuclear activities in exchange for relief from international sanctions. But in 2018, the U.S., under President Trump, withdrew from the deal. Tensions quickly escalated, and Israel ramped up its calls for international pressure on Iran. Israel's concern has always been that Iran's nuclear ambitions could pose an existential threat. Over the years, there have been several incidents that brought the conflict to the world's attention. Let's look at some of the most significant moments. In 2010, a cyber attack known as Stuxnet targeted Iranian nuclear facilities. This virus, reportedly created by the US and Israel, sabotaged Iran's centrifuges, delaying its nuclear program. It was one of the first major cyber attacks in modern history. More recently, in 2020, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iran's top nuclear scientist, was assassinated in a highly sophisticated operation that Iran blamed on Israel. This assassination further inflamed tensions between the two nations. Israel has also conducted countless airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria, aiming to prevent Iran from establishing a military foothold near Israel's borders. These airstrikes have become a regular feature of the conflict, highlighting the ongoing military engagement between the two nations. As we speak, the Iran-Israel conflict continues to simmer. While there is no direct war between the two nations, their rivalry plays out through cyber attacks, proxy wars, and covert operations. In the last few months, diplomatic talks to revive the nuclear deal have stalled. Iran continues to push forward with its nuclear program, while Israel has vowed to take any necessary action to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. At the same time, Iran continues to back groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, which remain hostile to Israel. Meanwhile, Israel is forging new alliances with Arab countries through the Abraham Accords, weakening Iran's influence in the region. Just recently, both countries have engaged in a new wave of cyber attacks. Iranian hackers targeted critical Israeli infrastructure, while Israeli cyber forces retaliated by disrupting Iranian networks. The cyber front is rapidly becoming a key battleground in this conflict. So, what comes next? Will Iran and Israel continue this cold conflict indefinitely? Or are we heading towards something bigger? The truth is, the future of this conflict depends on many factors. Whether Iran gets closer to building a nuclear weapon, how the global community responds, and whether Israel decides to take preemptive military action. One thing is for sure, the Iran-Israel conflict is far from over. Thank you for watching Mr. AI. If you found this deep dive into the Iran-Israel conflict informative, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos exploring the most pressing global issues. And let us know in the comments, what do you think will happen next in this conflict? Stay tuned for more, and as always, keep exploring. Subscribe and follow for more insights.